Hello and a very warm welcome to the Analyst dated 12th August 2026, brought to you by Vajiram and Ravi, wherein we'll be looking into the 6th set of current affairs article along with the mains value addition articles. The handout of this very discussion has been pinned in the comment section below for a future reference. Now, beginning with the analysis section, in the first topic, we'll try and understand that how frequent adjournments when it comes to the houses of the parliament not just negatively impact the quality of the debates, but it also jeopardizes the very idea of responsible government. So in this respect, we'll try and understand that how we can ensure an effective mechanism of parliamentary oversight over the executive. Moving on to the second topic, herein we'll try and understand the key provisions of the Tribunal Reforms Bill of 2026, and we'll also be looking into the various challenges which the tribunals are still facing in India. Then we'll be looking into one mains value addition article, which you can quote as a case study wherever you are writing an answer related to the relevance of R&D. And lastly, we'll be covering 4 prelim pointers wherein the value addition has been done keeping in mind the prelim stage of the examination, so stay tuned. Beginning with the very first article, which is dealing with parliamentary oversight over the executive. We all know that the Indian Constitution went with the parliamentary form of government. Why? Because we wanted a responsible government. But do you think in the present time, the responsible government idea is still being upheld? Let's try and understand. This particular topic you can associate with GS paper 2, wherein you have the topic of parliament and state legislature, their conduct as well as the functioning. Now, why are we asking this question that whether the idea of responsible government is being effectively upheld? The reason is continuously the ruckus is being created by the opposition political party MPs at the floor of the House during the ongoing monsoon session of the Parliament. And why this impasse between the political parties is there? Because the opposition political parties time and again demanding a befitting reply from the Union Home Minister with respect to the violence which was resorted to by the police forces when the youth were protesting at the Jantar Mantar in Delhi, and the protest being carried out by the students in the state of Jharkhand, wherein the students are demanding CBI inquiry into the exam related irregularities. Why the police resorted to brutal violence or force? Why the violence was resorted to? Why pellet guns were used? Opposition is demanding a befitting reply from the central government. And because of this impasse, what is happening actually is the parliament, which is considered to be as the temple of democracy, has merely been reduced to a rubber stamp. Why am I saying this? You take, for instance, what happened in Lok Sabha recently. Because of the ruckus that was being created by the opposition political party MPs, the House was adjourned till 2 p.m. and then again the work was resumed. But then also the ruckus continued, and ultimately Lok Sabha passed 2 bills. One was dealing with the change of the name of state of Kerala, and the other was National Co-operative Development Corporation Amendment Bill. And to your surprise, both of these bills were passed without effective debates and discussions. So in this backdrop, don't you think, you being a responsible and aware citizens, we should ask a very valid question that whether parliament is still a temple of democracy or it has just been reduced to a mere rubber stamp? Let's try and understand. Now let's first look into the vital statistics which tells us about the productivity of the 2 houses of the parliament. All these graphs and figures that you are seeing on this particular slide, they have been taken from PRS Legislative Research. Now, PRS pointed out that when you look at the budget session of 2026, there has been decline in the parliamentary debates. Why am I saying this? Just look at this particular graph. Can you see the gap between when a bill was introduced and in how many days the bill is actually getting passed? 4 bills were passed within a week of their introduction into that particular house. So the gap when it comes to the day on which the bill is getting introduced and the day on which the bill is getting passed, that is getting more and more narrower. So if a bill is getting passed within that same day, do you think the debates are going on in a normal manner? Quality debates are being carried out? The answer is obviously no. Then you look at the number of sittings recorded during the budget session. The PRS has done a comparison when it comes to 1993 and when it comes to 2026 budget session. You can clearly see this, that the sitting of the Lok Sabha during the budget session over the various years have gone down. Previously it was 45, now it is 31 merely. And another thing what is happening is, because of these ruckus which are being created at the floor of the house because of one reason or the other, what Parliament is actually doing is, it is resorting to guillotine motion. Guillotine motion is whatever provisions were discussed, with that only the other provisions which could not be discussed effectively at the floor of the house, all the provisions of a particular bill would be put to vote without effective debate and discussion on each and every provision of that particular bill, or for that matter budget. Because when it comes to PRS, it has clearly pointed out that less than 25% of the budget in terms of value we are talking about was actually discussed before it was approved by the House when it comes to the budget session of 26-27. So it clearly tells us that 77% of the budget was guillotine. That means it was passed without any discussion at the House. We merely discussed less than 25% of the value of the total budget, and rest 77% was passed along with that only, without effective debates and discussions. These raise questions on this particular thing, that is Parliament doing its work effectively? Another statistics which again I have taken from PRS Legislative Research website talks about the functioning of the 18th Lok Sabha, which worked from 2019 till 2024. These statistics you can effectively use when you're writing a mains answer relating to whether the Parliament is effectively able to scrutinize the actions of the executive or not. Now you look onto the first statistics, which is talking about the fewer sittings. So when it comes to the 17th Lok Sabha, the fewest sittings were observed amongst all the full-term Lok Sabha. Can you see a considerable decline in the average annual sitting days when it comes to the Lok Sabha? Whereas if you look at the number of days when it comes to the British Parliament, they work for almost 150 to 160, 170 days in a year. But when it comes to the houses of the Parliament, when it comes to India, we are merely working for 55 to 60 days. So that's the problem. When the number of sitting is going down, what is going to happen? You are left with less amount of time to effectively debate and discuss each and every provision of a particular bill. And ultimately, what would happen? The quality of debates and discussion would go down and the bills would be passed within a single day, pointing out this particular fact that we are not left with due time. And this is the business that we have to carry out in this particular session. And this is something that you can very well validate by the another statistics, that is declining parliamentary debates. The quality of debates are going down. Why I am saying this? If you look at the 17th Lok Sabha, 179 bills were passed. And if you see this particular data point, 58% of the bills were passed within 2 weeks. And 35% of the bills when it comes to the Lok Sabha and 34% of the bills when it comes to Rajya Sabha were passed less than 1 hour of discussion. So they were introduced and within 1 hour they were passed. And which are these bills? These were the crucial bills. Take for example, J&K Reorganization Bill of 2019, Women Reservation Bill of 2023. They were passed within 2 days of introduction. So do you see this fact that Parliament is not effectively working as a platform of effective debates and discussion, wherein we can take the concerns of the different people representatives and we can make the necessary modifications in the bill. Ultimately, what happens when you don't take into account the diverse perspectives from the elected representatives? Ultimately, the bills would be challenged in the judiciary. Then what is happening is, why the bills, the quality of bills is also not up to the mark. The reason being, less number of bills are being referred to the Parliamentary Committee for effective scrutiny. In Parliamentary Committee, what happens is, you have the representative not just from the ruling party, but you also have members from the opposition political party, and you also have expert members also. So because of this, Parliamentary Committee acts as a platform wherein the ruling political party as well as the opposition political party can draw some sort of consensus when it comes to a particular bill, and that increase the chances of that changed bill to effectively get passed and get passed with a voice vote. But that is not happening in India. Less than 20%, or to be very precise, 16% of the bills are merely being referred to the parliamentary committees. So that is severely impeding the chances of consensus building among the ruling political party and the opposition political party. And you can clearly see the drop in the percentage of the bills that is being referred to the parliamentary committee. From 71% in 15th Lok Sabha, we have reduced it to 16% when it comes to the 17th Lok Sabha. Now, what are the reasons why time and again we are witnessing adjournments when it comes to both the houses of the parliament? First is, when it comes to the opposition political party, whatever issue they are demanding, that this is something very crucial, let's discuss this at the floor of the house, that is not being taken up by the parliament. You take, for example, 17th Lok Sabha. Time and again disruptions took place. The presiding officer had to adjourn the house because of the Adani Hindenburg controversy, as well as the opposition political party wanted to discuss this controversial Citizenship Amendment Act as well as National Register for Citizens. The ruling political party was not ready to take up these particular issues. And similarly, what is happening currently? Why the Union Home Minister cannot give an effective reply to the opposition political party when it comes to the brutality being done by the police forces with respect to the youth who was peacefully protesting at the Jantar Mantar in Delhi, and the same story the police forces repeated in the state of Jharkhand. Why can't the government give a reply in that respect? If they give a proper reply, that would enable us to effectively address the ruckus which is being created at the house, and the house would be able to effectively carry out its function. That is quality debates and discussion, encompassing the diverse perspectives and making the requisite changes in the bill so that there are high chances that a bill would not be ultimately challenged at the judiciary. Then another problem that we witness right now is less number of bills are being referred to the parliamentary committee. Because of this, what is happening? A fair platform wherein we could have effectively built the consensus between the ruling political party and the opposition political party, we are letting go that opportunity. And due to that, what is happening? Effective debates and discussions are not taking place at the floor of the house. And consensus when it comes to the different bills, that is not effectively being built. Then another problem is when it comes to doing the effective scrutiny of the budget. Do you think the MPs in India have the requisite technical expertise like what the elected representatives in US and UK have? Because they have been provided with a separate research support. You talk about US or you talk about UK. Now this technical and research support, when it would be provided to an elected representative, they would be able to effectively scrutinize whatever bills or whatever budget is being presented at the floor of the house. And that would enable us to effectively uphold the idea of responsible government. But clearly when it comes to India, we lack this research support. And that is why what happens, the MPs, they don't have the technical expertise, plus they are not provided with some sort of research support. They are not in a position to effectively analyze the budgets as well as the technical bills which are being introduced at the floor of the house. And the problem gets complicated. Why? Because we are also not sending the bills to the parliamentary committee, wherein we have the scope to invite the experts so that we can incorporate the concerns being raised by an expert of that particular field. That is also not happening. So that clearly have a negative impact on the framing of that particular bill. When it comes to India, we don't have this parliamentary budget office which could provide the research support to the MPs, which would enable them to effectively scrutinize the budget. And ultimately, when this is not available, what happens? Majority of the budget is being passed without effective debates and discussion. We looked into this particular fact when it comes to the budget session of 2026-27. 77% of the budget, when it comes to in value terms, was passed through guillotine motion without effective debates and discussion. Why do you think that's happening? It is also because of the lack of technical expertise. Now, another issue is partition role of the speaker. Now, what happens is when it comes to the speaker, he or she has this power that they are one who are going to decide that which MP would be getting how much time when it comes to raising their concerns with respect to a particular bill or whatever is being discussed at the floor of the house. What we have seen is, when it comes to the opposition political party MPs, they are not provided with due time so that they can express their concerns with respect to the matter which is being discussed at the floor of the House. So that is a serious concern. And secondly, it is the speaker only which gets the right to decide that which is the business that would be taken up by the House. Even if the opposition political party wants to take up a matter which is of grave national concern, but it is up to the speaker to decide, to take a decision that whether this matter would be discussed at the floor of the House or not. And what we are witnessing is the speaker is not ready to take such matters which are of grave national importance. And that is leading to the opposition political party. They are left with no other resort but to create ruckus, ultimately leading to disruptions, and which severely impacts the quality of the debates and discussions that should be taking place at the floor of the House. Another problem is anti-defection law. So in anti-defection law, we have learned that there are three kinds of whip. The first one is one-line whip. So in this, the political party is going to simply tell you that, see, on this particular date, this matter would be discussed at the floor of the House. It is not going to tell you that whether you are supposed to be present or absent and in what manner you are supposed to vote on that particular matter. No, they'll just be informing you that, okay, on this particular day, this matter would be taken up at the floor of the House. Then we have two-line whip. In two-line whip, the party is going to tell you that, see, on this particular day, this crucial matter would be discussed at the floor of the House and you need to be present. The party is not going to tell you that in what direction you are supposed to vote, in favor or in against of that particular matter. No, it would only be telling you that whether you are supposed to be present or absent on that particular day. The crucial one is three-line whip. Why it is crucial? Because in three-line whip, the party is going to tell you that, see, on this particular day, this crucial matter is going to be discussed, you need to be present and you need to vote in favor of or in against of this particular matter. The party would be telling you that what would be your way of voting on that particular matter. Will it be in favor of that particular matter or it would be against of that particular matter? Now, what happens because of this anti-defection law? The MPs are supposed to follow the guidelines given by the party whip, and instead of contributing to effective debates and discussion, raising their concerns with respect to a particular bill which is being discussed at the floor of the House, what MPs are doing because of this party whip, they are supposed to join the disruptions because that is the guideline that they have gotten from the party whip. And that, in a way, is jeopardizing the democratic spirit of India. Otherwise, if they don't follow the party whip, what would happen? They would be subjected to defection proceedings, okay, and they might lose the membership of the House. Then there are other structural factors also. Nowadays, what is happening? We don't have one dominant party. In the initial years after independence, there was a Congress-dominated era. So there was single party, so it was effective to build the consensus. But now, more and more regional parties are rising, and they are getting represented at the Rajya Sabha as well as at the Lok Sabha. So when you have different political parties, they are guided by different ideology. Building a consensus among them is important. And building a consensus among different political parties with different ideas, it becomes difficult. Here comes the crucial role of the speaker. It is the responsibility of the speaker that when it comes to the crucial matters, speaker should organize an all-party meeting before that important bill is introduced at the floor of the House, so that the concerns of different political parties could be taken beforehand and requisite changes in the bill could be introduced, so that a bill, when it is introduced at the floor of the House, instead of creating ruckus, we can have effective debates and discussion, and we can ensure that a crucial bill gets passed with a voice vote. Herein, speaker needs to do the requisite role, which the speaker is not doing effectively. Take for example, yesterday itself in The Hindu, there was an editorial, I am sure you all would have read that, wherein it was pointed out that when it comes to the delimitation issue, there are federal concerns with respect to how the delimitation exercise would be carried out and how it is going to impact the representation of the states when it comes to the Lok Sabha. Don't you think so? Such an important matter should be first discussed at an all-party meeting, and this should be organized by the speaker, but the speaker is not doing that. Ultimately, when such controversial matters would be taken up directly at the floor of the House, what do you think is going to happen? When you're not taking into account the concerns of the opposition political party, ruckus would be the answer to that. Now, what is the impact? The impact, first of all, is we have discussed that how it is going to negatively impact the quality of debates and discussion. Apart from that, what happens? Now, the private member bills are severely marginalized. Why? Because the House would be of this particular viewpoint that we are left with less amount of time and we don't have this much of time that we can discuss private member bills, which are not introduced by a minister. It is simply introduced by a MP who could be belonging to the ruling political party, but that MP is not a minister. Okay. So what is happening is marginalization of the private member bills because the House is left with less amount of time to discuss these private member bills. Take for example, the 17th Lok Sabha. More than 700 private member bills were introduced in the 17th Lok Sabha, but only 2 were discussed and none of them were passed. And the similar story was there when it comes to the Rajya Sabha. More than 700 private member bills were introduced, but only 14 were discussed and none of them were passed. You will be astonished to know that when it comes to the private member bills, we have passed only 14 private member bills and the last one was in 1970s. Since 1970s, we have not passed any private member bill. When it comes to private member bill, why they are important? Because they raise important matters. I remember last year there was a very good editorial in The Hindu which highlighted the relevance of private member bills. It talked about that how one of the private member bills talked about creating boundaries, creating an effective work-life balance, giving the right to disconnect in this emerging era. Okay, wherein the companies are forcing their employees to do back-breaking work. When you go back home, you don't have this right that you can refuse to take any office-related calls. So, one of the private member bills talked about right to disconnect, but ultimately that was not discussed and that was not passed. So, private member bills also come up with unique ideas. So, we need to ensure that adequate time is given to them, but because of the frequent disruptions, what is happening is these bills are getting marginalized. Then another impact is the time that we devote to question hour, which is an important tool for parliamentary oversight when it comes to the executive, wherein the MPs can effectively ask the ministers to give a reply on the crucial matters. But what is happening because of the frequent disruptions is the time that we allocate to the question hour is going on a decline. You take for example what happened in the 17th Lok Sabha. Again, the PRS website clearly points out that in the 17th Lok Sabha, question hour functioned for 60% of the scheduled time in the Lok Sabha, and when you talk about the Rajya Sabha, only 52% of the scheduled time. So the adequate time that needs to be given to the question hour so that we can clearly uphold the idea of responsible government, that is not being done. And this has severe implication when it comes to the idea of accountable government. Then ultimately what happens? The government is of this view that see, we are left with less amount of time. We didn't got this much of time to pass crucial bills. So ultimately what they'll do, they will resort to ordinances. And this was the story when it comes to the farm laws, ultimately which were repealed. So when you adopt ordinance route, obviously you are not taking into account the viewpoint of the elected representatives. Why people are electing the MPs? So that MPs can represent our viewpoint at the floor of the House. But when you are resorting to ordinance route, what the government is trying to do, it is just trying to impose their viewpoint on the entire country, which ultimately was met with the farmers' protest, ultimately leading to repealing of the farm laws. But if the ruckus continues, we will see rising use of the ordinances in the upcoming times as well, which again goes against the idea of responsible government. And ultimately what happens if bills are getting passed at the floor of the House without effective debates and discussion? Do you think you as a aware citizen is going to hold trust when it comes to the elected representatives? The answer is no. And that is what the Association for Democratic Reforms, Daksh Voter Survey of 2023 clearly points out, that more than 60% of the people, the voters, believe that MPs do not represent the citizens' interest effectively. It is because of the disruptions also, and it is also because of the anti-defection law, wherein the MPs are not acting as a true representatives of the voter, rather they are merely acting as the representative or a delegate of their party. And lastly, you need to understand this. This is something which has been pointed out in various media reports, that every minute when the parliament function, it cost around 2.5 lakh. So if the parliament is not functioning for even an hour, imagine the monetary cost that we are bearing, because this money is from our pockets only. We as taxpayer are paying this particular money, but because of the frequent disruptions, what the representatives are doing, they are letting this much amount of money go waste. So it not just have implication for the democratic spirit, but it also have severe implications when it comes to the economy as well. Now, having understood the entire issue, let's try and understand what needs to be done so that we ensure that Parliament does not act as a mere rubber stamp. Rather, it upholds quality debates and discussion so that it can again function as a temple of democracy. First and foremost, what we need to do, we need to increase the number of sittings, the number of days for which the Parliament, both the houses, are supposed to function. As recommended by the National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution, that Parliament on an ideal basis should be sitting for 100 days on an annual basis. Like in a year, we should be ensuring that both the houses are meeting for at least 100 days. So that would ensure that there is effective time to ensure quality debates and discussion, and we will also be left with due time to discuss the important private member bills also, which raise very unique and innovative issues. For example, one of the private member bill, highlighted the issues faced by the transgenders, and ultimately that led to, government later on introduced another act. It was not that private member bill that ultimately got passed. Government on its own behalf introduced a bill to protect the rights of the transgenders. But it was the idea given by the private member bill only that we should think about the problems and the challenges faced by the transgenders in India. Okay, so if we increase the number of sitting, the Parliament would be having due time to discuss the private member bills as well, which come up with innovative ideas as well as solutions. Then what we need to ensure is that we follow the UK model. In UK, it is a convention. It's not something which is written in the law there, but it is a convention that majority of the bills, they would be referred to the Parliamentary Committee. So this is something we need to follow in case of India also. As I told you, Parliamentary Committee acts as a very fertile platform wherein the different political parties, they can build consensus over a particular bill, and we can also get the experts' input, so that would help us to bring the necessary changes when it comes to the formulation of that particular bill, ensuring that the bill would be passed at the floor of the House with a voice vote. Then we need to provide research support to our MPs so that they are able to effectively perform their functions that they are supposed to perform as being the elected representative. They need to be effectively able to scrutinize the bills and the budget that is being presented at the floor of the House. For that, we need to put in place a parliamentary budget office which should be providing the necessary research support to them. Then we need to make requisite changes in the anti-defection law so that the MPs are not forced to be a part of the disruptions. Rather, they are able to effectively voice their own concerns based on their own conscience, so that they can truly act as representatives of the people. They can be the voice of the public whom they represent, voice of the voters. And for this, as the Law Commission in its 170th report has clearly pointed out, that we need to make sure that we are restricting the use of anti-defection law to certain crucial matters. For example, when it comes to the confidence motion, no confidence motion, or when it comes to introduction of money bills. Only in such crucial matters only we should be going for anti-defection law. That means the political party should be issuing a party whip. For other matters, let's the MPs raise the concerns based on their own conscience. Lastly, we need to come up with the idea of opposition days, as is something which is being followed in UK. So in a particular year, let's suppose if the House is meeting for 100 days, for maybe 20 to 25 days, the UK Parliament would give this opportunity to the opposition political party that you decide that what are the crucial matter that should be taken up by the House. So in a way, we are reducing the power that we have given to the Speaker. In case of India, it is the Speaker which decides that which is the matter which would be discussed at the floor of the House. And since the Speaker here does not take up the matters which the opposition political party wants to raise, and that leads to ruckus. So let's follow the UK model. Let's give them 20-25 days. If the House is meeting for 100 days, let the opposition political party decide that what are the matters, what is the bills that should be discussed at the floor of the House. So that would reduce the disruptions that we are witnessing currently. And lastly, Speaker should work in the direction of consensus building. So when it comes to introduction of crucial bills, Speaker should ensure that an all-party meeting is carried out before that bill is being introduced at the floor of the House, and even after this all-party meeting is being done, the bill should be passed to the Parliamentary Committee so that we can also get the experts' input and we can make the necessary changes in the draft of that particular bill. That would help us restore the image of the Parliament as a temple of democracy. That's all that we need to know when it comes to this particular topic. As you can see on this particular issue, time and again UPSC has asked question. And based on the discussion that we have, I have also framed a practice question for you people. So do practice this question. And with this, let's move on to the next topic. Now, the second topic is dealing with Tribunal Reforms Bill of 2026. Why are we discussing this particular bill? Because both the houses of the Parliament has effectively passed this particular bill. And this particular topic you can associate with GS paper 2, quasi-judicial bodies, because tribunals are a kind of quasi-judicial bodies. Now, before we look into the key provisions of this particular bill, let's try and understand that what are tribunals. Now, in the original constitution, the idea of tribunals was not there. The tribunal chapter, which we find under part 14th A, this was introduced into the Indian Constitution through 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. Now, this particular Constitutional Amendment Act inserted two articles. One is Article 323A, which pertains to creation of administrative tribunals. What are administrative tribunals? Which are supposed to look into the service matters with respect to the people who are working with central government or with the state government. When it comes to the administrative tribunals, you need to keep this fact in your mind. This is something which could be asked in the prelims, is that it is only the Parliament which has been given this power under the Indian Constitution when it comes to creation of administrative tribunal. So state legislatures, they cannot create administrative tribunal. Does not matter that whether the service matter relates to a central government employee or a state government employee. In the matters of employee which is working with the state government also, for service related matters, the administrative tribunal would be created by the Parliament only. Then we have Article 323B, wherein the Parliament and the state legislature, either of them can create the tribunals, and these tribunals are not the ones which are going to look into service related matters. Okay, they will be created for other matters. For example, land reforms, taxation, how to regulate the financial market and all. So for these, the tribunals could be created by both the Parliament as well as state legislatures. Now, when it comes to tribunals, they are a specialized quasi-judicial body. Now, one thing which should be coming in your mind is that why we created tribunals. First reason was to reduce the backlog of the cases that we are witnessing at the higher judicial level, that is High Court and the Supreme Court. So tribunals were created so that we can realize the idea of speedy justice, which has been upheld by the Supreme Court as a fundamental right under Husainara Khatun case. Then the tribunals also enable us to uphold the idea of equal access to justice, which is provided under the DPSP's Article 39A. So why are we saying that when it comes to tribunals, they enable us to uphold this Article 39A? Because the benches of the tribunals are spread across the country. It's not like only in the capital of a particular state. Unlike the High Court, which is situated, especially in the capitals of a particular state, when it comes to tribunals, their benches would be spread across the country. So that is how we are ensuring access to justice. And when it comes to tribunals, the good fact is they are specialized. Why are we saying that they are specialized? Because apart from the judicial members, you also have technical members who have expertise when it comes to, let's suppose, dealing with the income tax related issues. So these expert members enable effective disposal of the case in a timely manner. So we are able to uphold the idea of timely justice also. So these were the major reasons why the tribunals were created through 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Now let's look into the key developments. Once you understand the entire chronology, you will be able to effectively understand that why there was a need to introduce this Tribunal Reform Bill of 2026. So the first tribunal that was created in India, that was before independence in 1941. And the first tribunal was Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. So this was created basically to expedite the tax related disputes. Then, based on the recommendation of Swarna Singh Committee, we introduced 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, which enabled us to put in place the Article 323A, which dealt with administrative tribunals, and It also provided for Article 323B, which dealt with creation of tribunals for other matter. So Swarna Singh committee also recommended that we should be putting in place an all India appellate tribunal for labour dispute. Now this could be, for this matter, we can create tribunal under this article, okay, as we looked into here. Then Swarna Singh committee also recommended that sector specific tribunals should be created for revenue, land reforms, essential commodities. For these crucial matters, again the tribunal could be created under this particular article, and it could be created by Parliament as well as state legislature. Now came the golden era of tribunalization, because the government created a lot of tribunals to ensure speedy justice. So this was the time period of 1980s to 2000, wherein several tribunals were put into place. You talk about Central Administrative Tribunal, Securities Appellate Tribunal to regulate or to look into the disputes related to financial sector, Film Certification Appellate Tribunal for film certification related issues. Then in 2000, we put in place Debt Recovery Tribunal for resolving the disputes related to NPAs which are associated with banks. And then in 2010, we put in place NGT, that is National Green Tribunal, which is playing a remarkable role when it comes to effective resolution of the environmental related disputes. And it is providing the expert input also when it comes to dealing with the environmental related issues. Because clearly the judicial members lack the expertise when it comes to dealing with the environmental related issues. Then came the Finance Act of 2017. Now, through this, the government reduced the number of tribunals. Earlier, we had 26 tribunals. It reduced it to 19. And this reduction was done, how? By merging the tribunals which have similar functions. So, based on functional similarities, the various tribunals were merged, and that's how we were able to reduce the number of tribunals. But the problematic part of this particular Finance Act of 2017 was it increased the executive dominance when it comes to the functioning of the tribunal. Why? Because through this act, the central government got this particular power to define the qualification, appointments and service condition for the tribunal members. And this also raised concerns when it comes to judicial independence, as well as it created concerns for conflict of interest. Why? Because tribunals are being managed by the different government ministries. And when it comes to the cases which are being discussed or which are being looked into by these tribunals are related to these particular ministries only. So do you think when the executive, which is regulating this particular tribunal, which is ensuring that who should be appointed as a member in the tribunal, so in this scenario, do you think this tribunal would be able to effectively do justice? Don't you think so? The decision of the tribunal might be in favor of the central government. That is what is called as the concerns related to judicial independence, as well as the concerns related to conflict of interest. Then came the Supreme Court judgment of 2019, that is Roger Matthew judgment of the Supreme Court, wherein Supreme Court clearly outlined that, see, when it comes to the regulation of tribunal, you need to put in place an independent as well as a commission which has legal backing. So that is what we mean by independent and statutory backing, National Tribunal Commission. And this is the commission which has been put in place by the Tribunal Reform Bill. Why the Supreme Court ordered or directed the government when it comes to creation of this independent commission? So that when it comes to the tribunals, they should be regulated by this independent commission and they should be shielded from the executive control. So when it comes to this commission, the Supreme Court recommended to the government that you create this commission which would be overlooking the selection as well as the administration of the tribunals. Then came the Tribunal Reforms Act of 2021, which was ultimately nullified by the Supreme Court in 2025. So what were the controversial provisions of this Tribunal Reforms Act? 9 tribunals were abolished, which basically include tribunals like this Film Certification Appellate Tribunal and all. And their functions were ultimately transferred to the High Courts. The controversial provisions were this. In this particular act, the government said that the minimum age to be appointed as a member of tribunal would be 50 years. Why the Supreme Court struck it down in 2025? Supreme Court said that by setting this minimum age of 50 years, you are excluding the young legal practitioners who are already having the experience of 10 years of legal experience. They are meeting this eligibility criteria that they have 10 years of minimum legal experience. So why are you excluding the young professionals in this respect? Then another controversial provision was 4-year tenure. earlier the tenure of the tribunal members was 5 years, but this act reduced it to 4 years. Now again the Supreme Court raised concerns with this respect. Why? Because when you reduce the tenure, what happens is you are subjecting the tribunal to undue executive interference in the functioning of the tribunal. So Supreme Court directed the government that you again restore the tenure of 5 years so that we can shield the tribunals from undue interference from the executive. And another controversial provision was, through this particular act, what the government did, they equated the service conditions of the members of the tribunals with that of civil servants. That means the allowances and the benefits which a civil servant in India is getting, the same allowances and the benefits would be provided to the tribunal members. Now the Supreme Court raised concern in this respect. The reason being, by doing this parity, what you are trying to do is you are impeding judicial independence, because by equating this thing to the civil servants, you will not be able to attract effective legal talent pool. And when it comes to the tribunal members, they are not doing any executive work. They are doing judicial work. So you need to make sure that their salaries, their allowances and the benefits that a tribunal member is getting, it needs to be equated to that of a high court judge and not that of a civil servant. Because civil servant is doing an executive work, but the tribunal members are not doing an executive work. They are doing a work which is of judicial in nature. That is why tribunals are referred to be quasi-judicial bodies. And this was all this thing that I told you was done by the Supreme Court in Madras Bar Association case of 2025. So why we have introduced this particular bill? So that we can do away with the controversial provisions which were there in the 2021 Act, and we can make sure that the idea of independence of the tribunal is upheld. That is something which the Supreme Court highlighted in Madras Bar Association case of 2025. Because in this 2025 verdict, Supreme Court has directed the Parliament that you restore the previous tenure of 5 years, you ensure judicial independence when it comes to functioning of the tribunals, and you establish this National Tribunal Commission within 4 months. And that is why this bill is now being passed. Okay. Now, it establishes the Independent National Tribunal Commission, as was highlighted by the Supreme Court, that you need to put in place an independent as well as a commission which has statutory backing. Now, this commission would be having statutory backing because ultimately this bill would become an act. So, this commission is drawing its powers from where? Once this bill would become an act. So, it is drawing its power from a statute or a law. So, what would be the functions of this particular commission? So, it would carry out the selection process when it comes to filling the vacancies of the tribunal. It is going to review the performance of 16 tribunals. It would be overseeing the inquiries into the complaints against the conduct or misconduct done by the chairpersons or the members of the tribunal, and to enhance transparency and to make sure that we have requisite data with respect to the backlog of the cases, we are going to put in place a national tribunal data grid which would be developed and maintained by this particular commission, so that we can ensure transparency when it comes to how many cases are still pending at the tribunal stage. Then, what is going to be the composition of this particular commission? So, you will be having one chairperson who needs to be a judge of a Supreme Court or a Chief Justice of a High Court. Then there are going to be 2 judicial members who have been Chief Justice of a High Court or Judge of a High Court. Then there would be 2 technical members, and these technical members need to have expertise of at least 25 years in their respective field. When it comes to the appointment of the members of this National Tribunal Commission, when it comes to the appointment of chairman and 2 judicial members, the appointment would be done by the central government, but in respect of this, they need to consult the CGI. Again, giving an upper hand to the judiciary and upholding the idea of judicial independence. Why we have not put this condition of consultation with the CGI when it comes to appointment of technical members? Because we have clearly listed this thing that the technical members need to have at least 25 years of minimum experience in their respective field. So that is why there is no need to consult the CGI in this respect. The CGI would be consulted when it comes to appointment of chairperson as well as the 2 judicial members when it comes to this particular commission. Then what is going to be the tenure of the chairperson as well as the member of this particular commission? So it is going to be 5 years and till the age of 70 years, whichever is earlier. Now, how we are going to select the members for the tribunals? Now we are not talking about this particular commission, we are talking about the tribunal, 16 tribunals that we have, how their members are going to be selected. So for filling the vacancies, this NTC is going to put in place a search cum selection committee which would be recommending 2 names, one name for the appointment and one additional name in the waiting list. Okay, maybe next time when the vacancy would be created, this additional person would be considered. And another important provision that had been put in place is the government needs to finalize the appointment within 3 months of receiving the recommendation. So in a way, it is trying to ensure timely appointment of the members when it comes to the tribunals. Then the term of the office of tribunal members, when it comes to the chairperson and the members of the tribunal, again we have restored the 5-year tenure and until they attain upper age limit, which would be 70 years in case of chairperson and 67 years in case of member. Remember, we are not talking about NTC, we are talking about the members of the tribunals, 16 tribunals. Now, when it comes to the reappointment of the tribunal members, this would be done by analyzing their previous work performance, and when it comes to reappointment of a member, in that case, you need to consult with the chairperson of that concerned tribunal. Okay, so again we are ensuring that the tribunals are protected from undue executive interference, because it is not based on the whims and fancies of executive that they can reappoint any member. For reappointment of a particular member or a chairperson, we need to look into the work performance. Then when it comes to removal, so the grounds have been clearly mentioned. It would be insolvency, conviction for moral turpitude, incapacity, abuse of position or conflict of interest. And additional grounds for tribunal members is incompetence, inefficiency or undertaking paid assignments. But still there is a controversial provision, which is the challenge that we are going to discuss right now, is the service condition is determined based on the executive rules. So whatever executive rules would be issued by the central government at a future date, that would be governing the qualification, selection, salaries, allowances, resignation, removal and other service condition. So again, there is executive dominance when it comes to the management of the tribunals. Now, what is the significance of this particular bill? More or less, majority of the significance I have discussed when I was discussing the provision. Firstly, it has put in place or restored the judicial independence. Earlier, the 2021 Act said that the tenure would be of 4 years. Now we have restored it to 5 years again. Okay. Then independent oversight is there, because it is the NTC which is going to now manage the tribunals. It would not be managed by the ministries now. So there would not be instances of conflict of interest. Then there would be transparent selection process, because it would be assessed by the judicially led search cum selection committee. So it would again reduce political or executive bias when it comes to the selection of the members. And with respect to reappointment also, I have told you how it is going to reduce the executive interference in that, because we have clearly stated that you need to first review the previous work performance. Then timely appointments would be there, because the timeline of 3 months have been clearly mentioned in the bill. And there would be digital accountability. We can effectively track that how many cases are still pending at the level of the tribunals, because this was the purpose for which the tribunals were created, to address the backlog of the cases. So if you are not able to monitor that, how much cases are pending at the tribunal, then what is the purpose of creating the tribunal? That is why under this bill, we have discussed that how a national tribunal data grid would be created by the NTC, which would enable us to effectively monitor the cases which are still pending at the level of tribunal, and how effectively it is enabling us to realize the idea of speedy justice. Now, what are the challenges which are still there when it comes to this particular bill? One problem is we have not given enough institutional autonomy to NTC. Why? Because as I told you, it is the executive which is going to determine that what would be the qualification, appointment procedure, selection procedure, removal procedure, salaries and all. So still the tribunal members are not under the effective control of NTC, rather they are under the control of the executive, because the executive through the subsequent rules is going to decide all these matters related to tribunals. So in a way, we have not given enough teeth to ensure judicial independence of the tribunals. Another problem is executive dominance still persists. Now, when it comes to the selection of the chairperson as well as judicial members of the NTC, we have said that, okay, central government has to consult the CGI. But when you look at the finances and the administration part, it is still under the control of the executive. So again, we have yet not been able to effectively shield the functioning of the tribunal from the undue executive control. Then, Another problematic factor is the Supreme Court in L. Chandrakumar versus Union of India case of 1997 stated that the decisions of the tribunal would be subjected to judicial review by the High Court. Why? Because judicial review is a part of the basic structure. But don't you think so? It is negating the very reason or the very objective for which the tribunals were created. Why we created tribunal? So that the backlog of the cases that the tribunal, when it comes to the higher judiciary, that could be reduced. But when you are adding another layer of litigation, that okay, tribunal has given the decision, now it would be subjected to High Court. Then what is the purpose of creating the tribunal? So clearly we need to look into this particular fact. We need to address this particular issue of additional layer of litigation which the Supreme Court has put in place through this Al Chandrakumar case. Then we created tribunal with the idea of speedy justice, but is it actually being realized? The answer is no. There is huge pendency. If you take, for example, the case of Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, almost 6.7 trillion rupees are still stuck in the disputes if you look at the data point of 2024. And when it comes to the appointment, there are still appointment related concerns, because what the executive is actually doing is they are appointing the retired judges as well as bureaucrats as technical. When it comes to bureaucrats, they are appointed as technical members in the tribunals. So when it comes to the retired bureaucrats, the position of tribunal members is provided to them as a post-retirement benefit if they have worked in favor of the government. Do you think such bureaucrats would be able to ensure that the justice is delivered in an unbiased manner? The answer is no. So we need to ensure that there is effective transparency when it comes to the appointment of the members. So when it comes to writing the way forward, you just need to reverse the challenges that we discussed, that we need to provide requisite institutional autonomy, clearly stating this fact that the salary selection allowances, this should be under the ambit of the NTC and not under the ambit of the executive. Then when it comes to the financial matters also, that should also be looked into by the NTC. That is the way that we will be able to ensure utmost independence when it comes to the functioning of the tribunals. Then we need to make sure that only controversial decisions given by the tribunals are subjected to High Court. Not all the decisions given by the tribunals are subjected to High Court's review. Then, to address the huge pendency, we need to create additional benches. When it comes to the tribunals, we need to ensure effective appointment of the members also. We need to do something with respect to the vacancies. And when it comes to the appointment concerns, there needs to be transparency when it comes to the appointment of the members. Although when it comes to this bill, we have effectively put in place eligibility criteria that when it comes to appointment of technical members, when it comes to NTC, they need to hold an experience of 25 years in their respective field. I think some sort of same eligibility criteria could be put in place for the 16 tribunals, which the NTC is going to manage. Because if you are able to recall, this 25 years experience wala point that we discussed, that was with respect to the technical members of NTC, not with respect to the 16 tribunals that we are talking about. So similar sort of eligibility criteria could be put in place for the 16 tribunal members as well. Now that's all that we need to look into when it comes to this particular article. Based on the discussion that we have, I have framed a practice question for you people. So do practice this question, and with this, let's move on to the mains value addition part. Now beginning with the mains value addition part, this case study that I'm going to discuss with you people, you can quote it whenever you are writing an answer relating to the relevance of R&D or innovation culture, or the relevance of startup when it comes to India. So what has been done is by the IASC is that they have used milk pouches, the waste milk pouches, to create construction material or to create furnitures. Now when it comes to the milk pouches, a normal family consume at least 1 or 2 liters of milk. So by that logic, we are creating at least 1 or 2, milk pouches waste that we are creating, and this amounts to almost 100 to 120 million single-use milk packets. Now, why ISC has used milk packets only for recycling? The reason being, the milk packets are not taken up by the rag pickers, because rag pickers, they usually prefer plastic bottles because that enables them to get effective revenue in return. They are more valuable. But when it comes to the milk packets, they are left in the public bins or they are just lying around the roadside. And when it comes to the recycling stage also, the dark colored plastics which are often used in the milk packets to ensure that the milk is preserved from the ultraviolet rays, to extend its shelf life, that creates challenge at the recycling stage. That is not easily recyclable. So ultimately what happens? These milk packets, they are ending up in the landfills. That is why ISC choose the milk packets for recycling. Now how it is being recycled? So what the ISC has done is, they have recycled this polyethylene which is there in the milk packets, and they have combined that with another material, that is polypropylene, which is found in the oil and shampoo sachets. Now, combining these two material was difficult. So what the ISC has done is that they have used vitrimers to aid the combination of these two materials and create a new recycled material which is strong and which could be used to make furnitures. Now, another similar issue that we witness is with respect to multi-layer plastics, which is used in the chips packets. Why they have multiple layer of plastics? To basically give an extended shelf life to the snacks. And that creates problem when it comes to the recycling stage, because when it comes to multi-layer plastics, you have to peel off every layer, then only you can effectively recycle that. And that is the reason again these multi-layer plastics end up in landfills and they create problem for soil degradation. So in this respect, the Bangalore based company, that is Unified Intelligence, have come up with an innovative mechanism, and they have started using this multi-layer plastics to build durable building material. And this is something which is not there in our hindsight, but it is something they have done on a practical basis. They have used this multi-layer plastic to create the interior walls at the Bangalore Airport Terminal 1. So this is something that you can highlight whenever you're writing the answer on R&D. Why there's a need to give a boost to the innovation culture? Because given the new set of problems that we are witnessing, we need innovation culture to effectively come up with a viable solution to deal with emerging challenges like pollution and climate change. Now, how this Bangalore-based startup effectively recycled it? So what they used to do, they used to gather these multi-layered plastic. They used to clean that before, they are going to recycle that. And then these plastics are supposed to undergo a process called thermofusion, okay, wherein heat would be introduced. And through thermofusion, these plastic layers would be fused into one another, and through this, they will be creating panels. Now, these panels would be used to create walls by creating a honeycomb-like structure between them. Now, why this recycled material is better as compared to the brick that we use? Because it is slightly thinner than the brick wall, but it is multiple times stronger. If you hammer it, it would bend and then again come back to its shape. So it is quite durable and it is quite stronger as compared to the brick wall. But the problem is it is quite expensive. Obviously, when you are using recycled material, firstly, the huge cost is involved in recycling the material, and when it comes to the consumers also, there would be apprehension from their side also that why we should put in place such costly material. But the advantage that this recycled material is going to give us is in terms of the water consumed in construction and the speed at which the building or the construction work could be carried out. As compared to the normal brick and mortar, the construction pace is comparatively high. Okay, so the speed at which the building is being constructed, it is quite high, and the water consumption is comparatively less. What are the other challenges apart from the cost factor? The other challenges when it comes to using these recycled material for creating wall and all, you need to get direct lab test certificates. Only then the consumer would be ready to use that. Another challenge is psychological element. If I am constructing my home, do you think I will be ready to use this recycled material to create my dream home? So that is another barrier which the companies have to witness. So in this respect, awareness generation needs to be done, and more advancement when it comes to the recycling process needs to be done so that we can bring down the cost at which the material is getting recycled. That's all that we need to know when it comes to the mains value addition articles. Let's move on to the prelim pointers. Now, beginning with the prelim pointer, the first article is dealing with the passage of two bills by the Lok Sabha without effective debates and discussion. That is the Kerala Alteration of Name Bill 2026, through which we are trying to change the name of Kerala from Kerala to Keralam, and another bill is National Cooperative Development Corporation Amendment Bill of 2026. So the mains analysis part we have already done in the first topic of analysis. Now we are going to look into the prelims related facts related to Article 3, which deals with the alteration of state boundaries and the renaming of the state, and we'll also be looking into the key provisions of this cooperative development related bill. This particular topic you can associate with the polity section of your prelim syllabus. Now, when it comes to changing the name of a particular state, In this case, it is Kerala, from Kerala to Keralam. Kerala Legislative Assembly has passed a resolution in this respect way back in 2024. Now you need to make note of this particular fact that this renaming or alteration of boundaries of the state, this is regulated by Article 3 of the Indian Constitution. Now, who can initiate this particular process? It could be initiated directly by the Parliament, or when it comes to state legislature, they can also initiate this process. But initiating the process does not mean that the state legislature can pass a bill in this respect. No, they are going to just merely pass a resolution, and this resolution would be put in front of MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs. And then in this respect, the bill would ultimately be introduced by the Parliament under Article 3. So, according to the Constitution, it is only the Parliament which can initiate this or which can introduce a bill in this respect. Okay, initiation could be done by the Parliament as well as state legislature, but when it comes to introduction of the bill, it could be done only by the Parliament. But before this bill could be introduced in the Parliament, this bill needs to be referred to the respective state legislature by the President, so that we can get to know that what are the concerns or the viewpoint of that respective state legislature. Now, whatever recommendation is given by the concerned state legislative assembly or the legislature, that is not clearly binding on the President or on the Parliament. So, Parliament can, completely sideline the recommendation given by the concerned state legislatures. And when it comes to the timeline, in what timeline the state legislature has to give its recommendation related to this particular bill under Article 3? So, that timeline would be determined by the President, when he would be or she would be referring that particular bill for the consideration of the concerned state legislature. The bill would be passed in both the houses by the simple majority. So, since it is being passed by the simple majority, it clearly means that it is not to be considered to be an amendment to the Indian Constitution under Article 368. It is not a constitutional amendment as it is being passed by a simple majority. And once this is being passed and it is being given assent by the President, then the name of that particular state needs to be changed in first schedule, wherein we have mentioned the name of the respective states and the UTs, which are part of the Indian Union, and it needs to be changed in the fourth schedule, which outline the name of the states and the respective seats that it has been allocated into the Rajya Sabha. Okay, so this is regarding the procedure of changing the name of a particular state. Now, let's look into the key provisions of National Cooperative Development Corporation Amendment Bill. Now, the bill seeks to amend the act that we had in this respect way back in 1962, and with this particular act, we created National Cooperative Development Corporation. So, through this amendment bill, we are trying to widen the ambit or the powers of this particular corporation only. So, when it comes to this particular corporation, that is NCDC, it is a statutory apex financial and developmental organization. It was created to basically provide a supportive ecosystem so that the cooperative sector could thrive effectively. So, it has been given the powers. I am talking about the Act of 1962. Under this, the NCDC has this power that it can provide the requisite finances to the cooperative sector so that they can grow effectively. Okay. Now, what are the key changes that we are trying to bring through this particular bill? So, we have tried to broaden the mandate of this NCDC. Now, in the existing act, that was 1962, this NCDC was allowed to provide the finance only to cooperative societies. Like, it cannot give the money or loan to other entities which are not cooperative societies, but they are helping the cooperative societies to grow effectively. So, now what is the change that we have done? We have said that now the NCDC can also, provide finances to non-cooperative societies also, which are helping the cooperative societies to grow effectively. As you can see here, many organizations which are playing a crucial role in strengthening the cooperative sector in India, but since they are not registered as cooperative societies, the NCDCs cannot directly finance them. But now this has been changed. Now NCDC can give fund to them also, but the ultimate goal should be the growth of the cooperative sector. Then this is what is direct funding related to intermediary entities. It can give the direct loan to cooperative societies. It was able to do in the previous act also. Now it can give it to other organizations also, which are enabling the cooperative sector to grow. Then when it comes to the share capital participation, so under the previous act, the NCDC can invest in the share capital of national level cooperative societies which are operating in more than one state. But now in the bill, we have stated that the NCDC can participate in the share capital of a particular cooperative society which is cooperating within a particular state also. Okay, it's not mandatory that cooperative society needs to work in more than one state. But such an investment would be requiring prior approval from the central government. Then we have expanded the definition of foodstuffs. Previously, the foodstuffs included items like egg, milk, basically the raw products that were there. But now, given the fact that the food processing industry is thriving in India, so we have expanded the definition of foodstuff, and it now includes processed foods as well as edible products also, and other food items that would be notified later by the central government. So this is being done basically to give a boost to the cooperative society which are working in the domain of food processing industries. Then we have also done away with the geographical barriers. Earlier, the NCDC could undertake activities relating to industrial goods, but it could undertake the activities in the industrial goods only with respect to the entities which are working in rural areas only. So basically, it can, provide requisite support to industrial cooperatives which are working in rural area, cottage and village industries and allied industries. But now the bill has said that this requirement that this entity needs to be situated in rural areas is no more there. So you can undertake you can take activities when it comes to the industrial goods even if the cooperative society is situated in urban areas also. That's completely fine. All you have to ensure is that we are creating an effective ecosystem where the cooperative society can grow effectively. Then it has also been given this particular power that it can collect the credit information when it comes to the cooperative societies, and it can share that with the central government, with the banks, with the RBI, etc. So that the banks also have this clear picture that which cooperative society is performing effectively well, which cooperative society is repaying its previous loan, and that is the basis on which the financial intermediaries can take an informed decision that whether they should be processing the loan for that particular cooperative society or not. So these are the major changes that we are trying to bring in when it comes to the functioning of National Cooperative Development Corporation. That is all that we need to know with respect to this particular topic. Let's move on to the next one. Now, recently, the Indian physicist, that is Deepak Dhar, has received the Dirac Medal. What is this medal all about and what is the work that has been done by Deepak Dhar? Let's try and understand. This is something that you can associate with the science section of your prelim syllabus. Now, Deepak Dhar has been provided with this Dirac Medal for his Abelian sandpile theory. Now, what is it, Abelian sandpile theory? Let's understand this with the help of example. So, let's suppose these are boxes and all these boxes have the capacity to hold maximum of 4 grains of sand. But in all these boxes, I have already put in 3 grains of sand. Now, just imagine that like this, I am dropping the grains of sand. Let's suppose I drop the grain of sand here. Now, earlier it was 3. It has now reached its maximum level. Now, again, if I drop a grain of sand, don't you think so? It would pass this additional grain of sand to maybe this, to maybe this box, to maybe this box, or to maybe this box. So that is what is the idea of Abelian sandpile. This is something that you can use to effectively understand that whether a particular region would be more susceptible to earthquakes or not. Because when it comes to plate tectonics, we are studying this thing that what is the strain that is being created and what is the maximum strain that this fault line could bear. The moment the movement of the plate tectonics, over a period of time it is moving, but the moment it has attained the maximum, strain that it can bear, and sudden change in the plate tectonic would trigger an earthquake in that particular region. So that is what is the practical implementation of Abelian sandpile. Okay, so this is being used to effectively understand the earthquake, forest fires, as well as fluctuation in the financial market. So fluctuation in financial market, how we are able to understand this? Let's suppose in a particular company, the shares were sold off. Now this small incident could trigger the other investors also, when it comes to the investors who have invested their money in other companies also, to pull out their money, because they are of this view that the financial market or the share market is going to fall. So that is how a single small incident can have wider impacts. It can lead to a modest slide or it can lead to a wider chain of reaction. This is something which could be used to effectively understand the various kind of disasters that we are witnessing. Small changes, the moment the earth has reached its maximum capacity, then this would be a small change would be leading to a chain of reactions. That is what this idea is all about. Let's note down certain preliminary facts related to Deepak Dhar also. He is an Indian National Science Academy Distinguished Professor at the International Center for Theoretical Sciences, which is situated in Bangalore. Previously, he has also received Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize in 1991. And in 2022, he became the first Indian to receive the Boltzmann Medal. This Boltzmann Medal is given once in every 3 years. And this is given for astonishing work when it comes to the field of statistical physics. And this was given to him for laying down the foundation of neural networks, basically understanding how the brain actually functions. And he also received the Padma Bhushan in 2023. Now, certain preliminary facts related to this Dirac medal also. So, this Dirac medal was established in 1985 by this International Center for Theoretical Physics to honor Paul Dirac, who was a British physicist whose equation helped lay the foundation of quantum mechanics. And when it comes to the frequency of this medal, it is awarded every year on 8th of August. This is basically to celebrate the achievements or the birth of Paul Dirac. Okay, and what is the eligibility? It is awarded to scientists who have made significant contribution to theoretical physics. And you need to make note of this important preliminary fact that this medal would not be awarded to the ones who have already received Nobel Prize or field medalist or are Wolf Foundation Prize winners. Certain preliminary facts related to International Center for Theoretical Physics. So, this works in the field of physical and mathematical sciences. It was established in 1964 and it is located in Italy. It functions under a tripartite agreement which involves Italian government, UNESCO as well as International Atomic Energy Agency. That's all that we need to know with respect to this particular article. Let's move on to the next one. Now, in the backdrop of Reservation Hatao Andolan and the grievances outlined by the general category people, that how fake cases are registered against them under the SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act, the government has created a task force to look into this particular fact, that how we can provide enhanced relief and counseling to the SC and ST victims under the SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities rules. This particular topic you can associate with the polity section of a prelim syllabus. Now, this task force was headed by the Secretary to the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and it has suggested various changes. Firstly, let's adjust the relief and rehabilitation amount according to the inflation, because the last time the amount was set was way back in 2016, and since 2016 we all agree that inflation has increased manifold. So there is a need to raise this amount. Currently the compensation could vary from 85,000 to more than 8 lakh depending upon the seriousness of the crime or the degree of the injuries or the harm which was suffered by the victim or their dependents. So based on this, the relief and rehabilitation amount is decided. But this amount was set way back in 2016. We need to adjust this amount based on the inflation level. So this is the first recommendation. Another recommendation is, let's set up special relief and rehabilitation cell in the states and the UT so that we can provide effective counseling services to the SC and ST victims. And let's put in place fast tracking FIR and charge sheet procedures so that speedy action could be taken against the cases which are registered under this particular act. And counseling services needs to be improved for the victim. And the last time that we made amendment into this particular act was way back in 2018. Why? Because widespread protests were there from the ST and ST community because of the verdict given by the Supreme Court in 2018, wherein Supreme Court held that prior permission would be required to make an arrest when a case is registered under this particular act, and anticipatory bail would be guaranteed. Okay, so anticipatory bail is before the police arrest you, you can get a bail order from the requisite court. So police cannot put you behind the bars. So because of this thing or this ruling given by the Supreme Court, the ruling was perceived by the SC and ST community as a weakening of this particular act. And they thought that if we allow this weakening of this particular act, then more and more atrocities would be carried out against the SC and ST community people. So that is why widespread protest was there, and that is when the last amendment was done in this particular act. And again, this ruling was nullified. Now, the National Commission for Scheduled Caste has also suggested various amendments to this particular Atrocities Act. It has talked about incorporating a provision to effectively protect the livelihoods of the scheduled tribes when they are alienated from their land, and to get the land rights back, they have to fight court battles, which takes a lot of amount of time, and this severely jeopardizes their livelihood security. So we need to incorporate adequate provisions in this respect, and we also need to check registration of counter FIRs. Let's suppose I, belonging to a general category, I committed atrocities on this person A, who belonged to SC and ST community. Now he went to the police and he reported this particular instance that atrocity was committed against me. Now before police could take action against me, I file a counter FIR that no, he is filing a false case against me. So this is going to severely impact the investigation of the police when it comes to the atrocity related cases. So that is why NCST has recommended that we need to keep a proper check when it comes to registration of counter FIRs against those who end up reporting the atrocities cases to the police, because if you don't monitor the registration of counter FIRs, what would happen? The people from ST and ST community, despite witnessing atrocities at the hand of the general category person, they would not be incentivized to go and report that particular instance. Okay, so that is why we need to keep a check on counter FIRs also. Although the Ministry of Social Justice has clearly pointed out that we will be having a consultation with the UTs as well as states in this respect before finalizing these suggestions given by the particular panel. Now, as NCST was discussed in this particular article, let's look into the prelim facts related to this particular body. So it is a constitutional body which was established by amending Article 338, and we inserted new Article 338A. So initially, there was only one body, but 89th Constitutional Amendment Act, which was brought in 2023, created two distinct commissions, that is National Commission for Scheduled Caste and National Commission for Scheduled Tribe. Now, headquarter of NCST is in Delhi only. If you look at the composition, so chairman holds the rank of Union Cabinet Minister, vice chairman holds the rank of Minister of State, members, their rank is equivalent to Secretary of Government of India, and when you talk about the terms of office, their tenure would be of 3 years from the date they assume the charge. What are the basic functions of this particular commission? To safeguard the constitutional safeguards which are given to the ST community, whether those safeguards are effectively upheld or not. Then inquiring into specific complaints related to atrocities against the ST community. Then advising the government when it comes to coming up with any scheme or any proposal which deals with the development or welfare of the ST community, and submit a report to the President on an annual basis relating to this particular aspect, that whether the constitutional safeguards which are given to the ST community are effectively being upheld or not. Okay, or discharge any other function which is given to this particular commission by the President. That is all that we need to know with respect to this particular article. Let's move on to the last topic of today's analyst. Now, you all must be aware of the FCRA bill, how FCRA bill is trying to jeopardize the independent working of the civil society organization. Because through this bill, what the government is trying to do is, if your FCRA registration is being cancelled, then your entire asset would be given to a particular entity, and that entity would be governed by the government. Now the problem is, this taking away of the assets of the NGO, once the FCRA registration are getting cancelled or they are not renewed, this is being done without judicial oversight. So that is why the opposition political party, they have raised concerns in this respect. And ultimately, the center government has accepted this particular fact, that they have assured the opposition political party that we will be introducing a resolution and we will be referring this FCRA bill to a joint parliamentary committee. Now, this is something that you can associate with the polity section of a prelim syllabus. Now, what is important from this particular article is certain prelim facts related to joint parliamentary committee. Why we are not discussing FCRA? Because we have already discussed that in previous analysts. To know more about the FCRA bill, please refer to previous analyst videos. Now, when it comes to joint parliamentary committee, it is not a permanent parliamentary committee. It is created on an ad hoc basis. So if an issue arises and the House decide that, okay, we have to create a parliamentary committee, joint parliamentary committee, only then this committee would be created. It would be looking into that particular matter for which it was created, and once it submit the report in that respect, then the committee would cease to operate. So it does not work on a permanent basis, unlike the public account committee or the estimate committee, which are constituted every year. Okay, so when it comes to the joint parliamentary committee, they are ad hoc panel. The composition is, you have the members from both the Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. So usually it has 31 members, 21 are from Lok Sabha and the rest 10 are from Rajya Sabha. They are supposed to submit a report within 90 days. though extension could be possible if the consensus could not be built among the members of the Joint Parliamentary Committee. Historically, JPC has been constituted to look into the Bofors scandal, 2G spectrum allocation, and recently in 2024, a 31-member committee was also constituted to look into the provisions of the WAF Amendment Bill. How effective are these committees? We all know that the recommendation given by any parliamentary committee is just merely advisory in nature. It is not binding on the government, but although the government has been obligated that it has to give an answer at the floor of the house that why they didn't acted upon the recommendation given by the parliamentary committee. Okay. So that is how it is effective, because if it tells at the floor of the house the reason why it didn't follow the recommendation given by the committee, then further questions could be asked, and that's how the accountability mechanism is strengthened. That's all that we need to know in today's Analyst quiz. Will be coming right up next, so don't forget to practice the quiz, and please check your knowledge. Till then, keep smiling, keep learning. Have a great day, all of you.